It's Solar Flourish for real.
No, instead it has 4 Lingering Souls, which is the card we we're talking about. Still one of the more powerful cards. It seeks to play somewhat of a control game, but then win through a variety of threats. It has a Blade Splicer, 4 Lingering Souls, 4 Sun Titans, 1 Gideon Jura, 1 Snapcaster Mage, and 2 Phantasmal Images. So and the rest of the cards it has are all answer cards. So it's still seeking to somewhat slow down the format and I think provide an eventual stream of threats that are unanswerable by most decks.
His opponent, William Hendricks, is playing a black-blue zombies deck with a small little splash for the ability to flash black Bump in the Night.
Ooh. So typically these decks saw rise about 2 weeks ago. Most of them are playing off some of the key interactions, especially for Phantasmal Image, which he actually is not doing today.
He's got Metamorph.
He has Metamorph instead of Image. So he still has the Diagraph Captain. But yeah, he's playing Metamorph, so possibly it's nicer on your mana. It doesn't die as often, but it is a little more expensive.
Both these players have gone down to 6 cards. One of the things I think that's really interesting about William's list, Bump in the Night is not a card that one is used to seeing in these lists, but one of the things about the Captain, the Diagraph Captain, can nibble away life in ways that are really surprising. So perhaps William has decided that he really wants to just directly attack the life total more aggressively. And I haven't seen this tried out yet. I'm curious to see if it has how effective it is.
With the last stand tournament against, I did see there were a couple players playing black-red zombies, which was not as popular as the blue-black zombies, but could utilize Bump in the Night as a double Lava Spike spell. I think what's interesting is that he's trying both of them right now at the same time. It really does seem like a more aggressive strategy toward their life total. So we'll see. The question is whether or not the flashback on Bump in the Night actually matters. If it doesn't, it might be a little fancy, but if he gets the chance to actually flash it back, it might prove to be pretty good.
Both players now down to 5 cards. Mulls on both sides. This is a lot of mulligans. And the thing about a card like Bump in the Night, if you are in a position where the life totals are going to be going down rapidly, Bump in the Night becomes pretty awesome just as a single Lava Spike. And the only real leaning he has in his deck to make the Bump in the Night flashback happen, he's got 3 Dragon Skull Summits and no other way to flash it back. So he's only actually concerned about flashing it back incidentally. It's not like it's part of his plan.
He's mostly just playing a Lava Spike.
Yeah, it's mostly just a spike for him. And William Hendricks to 4 cards.
Yeah. At this point, when both players are on 5 cards, typically what'll happen is that both players at this point will be aggressively just mulliganing toward hands with two or more lands in them is what they're trying to keep. As a result, I mean, before we saw that William's going to 4, this sort of thing might favor William as he has a lot more 1-drops. I think what Hetrick will probably be trying to find is a hand with, 3 lands Lingering Souls. At this point, that sort of hand out of Hetrick could win the game by itself when his opponent's on 4 cards. He'll obviously be trying to avoid his high drops, but really, this sort of board state, I think because of Lingering Souls, whether or not Hetrick will probably be not favored since they're both on 5, unless he has a Lingering Souls or some other. That's probably what he'll be looking for right now.
For those of you who are just joining us, this is the Star City Games Live Open Series here in Sacramento, California. I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Matthias Hunt, and we are bringing you Standard. It's going to be 9 rounds of Standard today. On your left, William Hendricks, oh my goodness, who just is mulliganing to 3. I think I saw someone win in a mull to 3 once, but I might have had a dream and it might not be real. And on the right, Michael Hetrick with Esper Control.
All right, this looks obviously is very bad for William. Michael has kept a 5-card hand, which gives him some nudge of hope, but it's 3 cards will still be very difficult for him to really assemble any sort of action.
I actually do remember it was a mull to 3. The player was playing against Goblin Guide, and Goblin Guide did a lot of help.
Yeah.
And it was a mull to 5 on the other guy's side. So this is actually, a mull to 3 versus a mull to 5, so.
Could go either way.
So actually, here's a question. Let's pretend you're William, and you decide at your 3-card hand that is a card. Oh, is that a keep? Is he finally keeping? Do you show your opponent any cards if you think you can't win? Or you just find out what they're playing and leave it at that, and not lay anything?
I've had one game where I've run the strategy. I think if you have a hand with a 1-drop Gravecrawler,
there you go.
Then you certainly don't do that, because you do have the chance of actually being able to win.
Yeah, you could just go Gravecrawler and then the next turn lay another 1-drop.
He could, if the top 2 cards of his deck are 2 more Gravecrawlers, he could win this game. And I mean, obviously that's not a great line. It's a real line, so I think he has to play for it.
William Hendricks. For those of you who are Sacramento players, you can come down here tomorrow, too. Not only can you see old-school Sacramento people like Ricky Hayashi, but you can also get in play in our Draft Challenge tomorrow, our Legacy tomorrow. Thought Scour number 2 from Michael Hetrick.
And it looks like William has missed his second land drop as this is being done on his end step. So
only a single Gravecrawler for William, but I mean, quadruple mulligan, ouch.
On a Mulda 3, the turn 1 Gravecrawler is what you're looking for.
Another attack. A lot of people like to use the intimidating zombie for a 2-drop. There are none of those in William's deck.
There's no highborn ghouls. Zombies the weaker part of zombies right now is that its 2-drop slot is very sparse.
Yes.
Mortar Pod is probably the best 2-drop zombie, and I put that in quotes because it's not a zombie at all in the deck.
In the sideboard, William Hendricks has 4 Porcelain Legionnaires, I think, to shore up that weakness in certain matchups. Second mana from William Hendricks, and now we see no play because he really doesn't have anything to do on turn 2. It's turn 1 and turn 3 that he has stuff to do.
No, and Hetrick is only 1 land away from a Sun Titan in his hand, which should, depending on, I imagine William's hand will have something like a Geth's Verdict in it or a Go for the Throat, but even so, Sun Titan will be very hard for him to come back.
Sun Titan is such a monster.
Well, with the 3rd Darkslick Shores there, William is actually...
Now he's on.
He's brought himself back into the game.
Well, he has access to most of what his deck can do. Now, William Hendricks is running Liliana of the Veil, and Liliana of the Veil is not a card I like in most decks, but I do like it in decks that attack, because if you force your opponent to have to attack back, that actually is something that they often don't want to do. We see a land for Michael Hetrick, and it comes into play tap, Darkslick Shores, William, untap.
So William is still choosing not to play out any more threats. Do we know, is it because he has no more threats, or he's just hoping that to protect the Gravecrawler, as it were?
I've been trying to catch his hand. I see 2 Diregraph Captains. I think he's been waiting for an opportune moment just to have it do some damage. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think he had the other Diregraph Captain. So I think he was waiting till he had something to play after the fact.
I think so. What he probably doesn't realize right now is that Michael Hetrick's deck's counter spell suite is 3 Mana Leak, and that's it for the entire deck. Has 1 dissipate. It has a couple more. 1 dissipate in the sideboard, but that's really it. I feel like.
And we see double phantasmal image on the Diregraph Captains.
Well, suddenly we have a zombie mirror on our hands.
Okay, go zombies. Now, Hetrick is playing these out because he has that Sun Titan reserve. It's okay for him to lay these things out and not be the controlling deck for half a second, just to gum up the game a little bit, and then, well, I mean, it's still being a controlling effect, but to gum up the game a little bit, and once they get killed, then to come back with the haymaker of Sun Titan into phantasmal images. Those are his only 2 images. We see a Tragic Slip, I believe?
A tragic slip a Tragic Slip kills one of the images.
All it's got to do is touch it for it to get it to die.
Which then is really, which that'll trade with the other Diregraph Captain there.
And then we see 3 more damage for Hetrick. Hetrick down to 9.
Now, William also, he had a second captain, is that right?
He does have another captain in his hand.
So there was also the option there of him to have just played the second captain and pass the turn, and then try to swing them all back at him, which I might have liked as well.
Well, I think he was kind of wanting to hang back against a possible Day of Judgment, or a Black Sun Zenith.
That's fair. If Hetrick has a Black Sun Zenith or Day of Judgment, yes.
Boom.
It does allow for this sort of play, though, and I think that's what Hendricks has to be worried about. So now his army of Gravecrawlers is facing down an army of Sun Titans.
Now, one thing that's worth noting is that a Diregraph Captain can turn those Gravecrawlers into little 1-point pokes.
Yes. And with Hetrick at 6, that's fairly relevant.
There's the Diregraph Captain. I bet you these Gravecrawlers are just going to come on in. Oh, wow. They don't. I would just have attacked with those. They can't block.
Yeah, it's the only thing that Gravecrawler really...
I mean, knock Hetrick down to 4, and then recast them on the next turn and do the same kind of thing.
Yeah, I think he might be thinking that, you know, he doesn't have the mana to recast them right now, though because the Gravecrawlers can't block, when you choose to recast them is fair the same going both ways.
Oh my gosh. Another Sun Titan in hand. I think that's a mana leak as well. O-Ring's going to take out the captain.
Oblivion Ring on the captain probably takes out a lot of the lines in which Hendricks can send over 6 more damage.
In for 18?
Looks like it. And Hetrick with his... So we have no attacks?
I believe he attacked there.
Okay.
I mean, they all have vigilance, so...
Well, okay.
There we go. 6-2.
Now Hetrick, for fun, had the option of recurring his Evolving Wilds 3 times there if he'd have chosen to.
I think I see 2 lands in William's hand.
And
okay.
We're going to game 2.
If we look to the sideboard, William Hendricks has Geth's Verdict, but he also has Surgical Extraction and Memoricide. Now, you can go way overboard in trying to fight Sun Titans if you are too scared of them. So, do you like going into any kind of graveyard / remove from the game attack if you're William Hendricks, or do you prefer just to ignore it and try to be the same deck?
I would say, for the most, one of the things that his deck has going for it is that it's not... he has a very good aggressive plan, and actually, even on a board where a Sun Titan's been cast, Hendricks still has quite a lot of game, in that he has Bump of the Nights, he has Diagraph Captains, and he has recurring Gravecrawlers that are able to suicide themselves. So Sun Titan doesn't exactly end the game for William Hendricks, so because of that, I think his deck already has inherent ways that it can deal with Sun Titan, and any sort of graveyard hate will probably just dilute his original strategy of trying to kill Michael Hetrick. So,
if I were William, I would get rid of the 3 Tragic Slips from my deck, and perhaps make that be Verdict, and then maybe actually even add the Porcelain Legionnaires in on some small amount. Because the Tragic Slips don't strike me as being all that exciting.
Tragic Slip is probably not very good in the matchup, so some Legionnaires who might come in, we might see Legionnaires in for Tragic Slips. You might also see... I'm not sure of what else we may see. Instead of Geth's Verdict, you may see Dismember.
I prefer the Verdict to Dismember, because Dismember kills most of the same things that a Verdict does, but it doesn't kill some things.
That's fair. They're both
kind of not exciting.
Neither of them are exciting. His main deck is really the most exciting thing in the matchup.
Yeah. On the other side of the table, Michael Hetrick, I think he'll immediately have access to cards like Day of Judgment. He's only got 2 days main, so adding another day is good. I wouldn't mind seeing Ratchet Bomb come in. I actually think that Blade Splicer, which he has in his board, is a very reasonable card to bring in because it brings out that 3/3 first striker.
Definitely. Yeah, I would say it's a fairly safe bet to see that we'll see the 3rd day. The Blade Splicer seems fairly good also.
I would expect that the Mana Leaks might come out because they're just going to come to the party way too late, except if you're lucky.
Mana Leak's not very strong here.
Any other thoughts?
Any other thoughts? Well, let's see. A lot of his removal spells in the main are still very good. He has 1 Go for the Throat, 1 Deadweight.
Oh, he's got 1 Doomblade, which is not exciting.
Doomblade will certainly be coming out.
So that's 4 cards if he cuts a Doomblade and 3 Mana Leaks.
Yeah.
I could see him cutting down 1 Alchemy if he wants to find more cards.
Well, he has 3 Celestial Purges, which will presumably all come in.
That's a lot of cards to have to try to...
3 Purges and a Day of Judgment. And
it's 4 cards.
4 cards, and his Blade Splicer...
That's 5 cards.
So, I think we'll probably see some combination of those coming in.
I agree with that. I would say
Ratchet Bomb, while it's fine in the matchup,
not great.
May leave just because Celestial Purge is so much better of a card here.
I do like the ability of Ratchet Bomb to do something like come onto the table really quickly to clear out just temporarily, understandably, Gravecrawlers, but if it also gets a Diagraph Ghoul on top of it, I mean, that early rush where your opponent can go turn 1, 2 power, turn 2, 2 power, 2 power. Having a Ratchet Bomb on turn 2 is incredibly, incredibly powerful.
Definitely.
I mean, think about it this way, too. Obviously, both players mulliganed a lot, but William Hendricks, on a mull to 3, virtually had his opponent at 4 life.
Yeah. I mean, and that was what I was saying. Against, in those hands, a turn 1 Gravecrawler was going to be the best thing for William going on, because he has to assume that Michael Hetrick's probably just keeping some sort of hand with a lot of lands in it. As a control deck on a mull to 5, I'm very happy to see 4 lands, 1 spell. So a turn 1 Gravecrawler was probably going to be worth 6, at least 6 damage, and it turned out, I think, swinging for 8, so it will still be very strong. Now, when Michael gets a 7-card hand, Michael might have something like a Lingering Souls, which really will turn off the turn 1 Gravecrawler, even if it's just... The fact that the Gravecrawler recurs will be fine for Michael, really. We'll just trade with it every turn.
And we see a turn 1 Gravecrawler. This time backed up by a few more cards.
Right.
And a turn 2 Seachrome Coast for Michael Hetrick.
Yep.
If I said 2, I meant 1.
Turn 1 Seachrome Coast. Looks like Michael's hand has a lot of land in it.
And is that a special art diagraph
Those
rule?
are 2 special art diagraph
I have not
rules.
seen that art. Okay.
Yep,
Planes.
Those are the game day promos, and we do see the Celestial Purge in Hetrick's hand. It might be used on the Gravecrawler, as I do not believe he has a Day of Judgment.
I would say I would use it on the Gravecrawler even if I had the Day of Judgment.
That's very possible.
I actually probably would have used it main face, on just so that you don't have Hendrick verdict himself to keep the Gravecrawler in the yard. Or something like that play.
On that board, I don't see Hendrick making that play, but yeah, there's really not much of a reason to... Well, the reason would be if he has a mana leak and is suspecting, Dark Slick Shore, Diregraph Captain, you'd rather be mana leaking at that point.
3 mana. Take 2 from a messenger.
And now Hetrick's almost wishing he had the Celestial Purge back at this point. And there's the Day of Judgment for him, though he still is set to take 7 into 9 damage. He's still set to go to 5 and be facing down a 4/3.
Is that a mana leak in his hand? It is.
It is a mana leak.
I don't like that.
The problem is, even after a Day of Judgment, Hetrick is essentially at 1 life right now. He'll have to tap out for it, take 2, and then take 4 on a swing back, which will put him down to 1. And he has no choice really but to Day of Judgment on this board.
Is that a bucket island? He doesn't even bother. He's just like, I know where I'm heading.
Yes.
That was a very quick game too compared to that first game.
Yeah, Zombies has a lot of 2-power creatures for 1. And Geralt's Messenger is a very strong card. It's obviously the most prohibitive thing about it is its mana cost, but once you get over the fact that it's triple black, it's a really good card.
Sometimes what you'll see in these decks is going even a little bit more into that prohibitive land by running Obliterator. I'm not sure how I feel about Obliterator in these style of lists. Every time I've seen it play out, it seems fine, but not great.
Obliterator is probably not as strong of a card as, well, certainly not as strong of a card as Messenger. The most common use I've seen for it is that people with a mono black deck will side it in the red matchup.
It's incredible against red.
Yes.
It really is.
Unless the red deck is packing Dismembers, it's a creature which it is a very hard wall for them to attack around.
Absolutely. And the thing that people sometimes forget about this, and I remember in one playtesting session, Patrick Chapin and I were using proxies, and we forgot that Obliterator had Trample.
Yes, Obliterator also trampled.
And it's funny because we remembered mid-game, but like the thing is it's not just that Obliterator is a reverse Phyrexian Negator. It really has...
It has everything that Phyrexian Negator had.
Ability, and it matters when it comes to changing the tide from a defense to offense. Trample is not evasion, but it's a lot like evasion.
Yeah, Trample was it. When we were playing for the last Pro Tour, oftentimes we had people left and right in playtesting forgetting that Flipped Huntmaster of the Fowls actually also has Trample. It's one of those cards that when they have a very flashy ability on it...
Wait a second, it does?
Yes, Flipped Huntmaster, yes, Ravager of the Fowls has Trample. So actually, we had a story about the Pro Tour where Adam Reiser was playing it, and his were Japanese, which I guess that was the only ones we could get. But he attacked with a Sword of War and Peace, Hunt Ravager of the Fells, and one of his opponents decided to block with a Moorland Taunt token, and like, oh, well, actually he has Trample on there, so we're like, what? It's not the flashy ability. It's not when you say what does Hunt Ravager Fells does when he flips. No one answers. Oh, well, he gains Trample. You'll say he's a 4/4. You'll say he blows up things. You don't say he tramples.
What special ability does Grave Titan have?
Grave Titan also has Death Touch.
Right, okay, we got Evolving Wilds from Michael Hetrick. Gravecrawler, again on turn 1 from William Hendricks.
It was really a great start for the deck. Once again, I think Michael would really love to see a Lingering Souls in one of these games. It seems like it would really help him buy the turns he needs to get to his late game. I believe he has one this time.
Yeah. Michael Hetrick, on the play, it's much more reasonable for him to have...
Is that an O-Ring or a Lingering Souls?
I think I see it's Lingering Souls, I think.
He doesn't have... Yeah, he also has 3 Oblivion Ring. Which actually the Oblivion Rings might not still be in the deck with the Purges being sided in.
I like
a lot of the same effect.
I like having a whole bunch of that effect. You've got a lot of targets. You've got Gravecrawlers and you've got Messengers.
Yeah, it does actually look like it's an Oblivion Ring, so...
Fume Spitter.
This is one of those situations where Fume Spitter probably stays in only for the fact that he doesn't have many cards to switch for the Fume Spitter. It's fairly weak.
I actually like it against
Phantasmal Image.
Well, I actually like it because of the way it interacts with your own Geralf's Messengers, where you can reset your Geralf's Messenger so that it lives again.
That's fair. It gives it extra utility. But
it's subpar, but it's not.
It's not dead.
But it's not even that it's not dead. It's that in the matchups that are controlling, Fume Spitter is better than a lot of things. Even though you'd prefer to have like a 2-power guy there.
Right.
Well, he's actually better than the... I'm forgetting the name of the Intimidator.
Highborn Ghoul.
He's better than Highborn Ghoul against the control decks because of its interaction with the Messenger.
Against Blue-White, there's the problem that White...
Even Blue-Black, though, too.
White will be trying to exile and O-ring your Geralf's Messenger, so he doesn't actually get to undie as much as you would hope. But there is Fume Spitter is a fine man in the matchup, I suppose.
In for 3. I believe we're knocking Michael Hetrick down to 12. And there's the Messenger.
And there's the Messenger. So we're talking about... So now Michael really will need to use the O-Ring on the Messenger as... Right, with the Fume Spitter, the Messenger really won't go away in many other...
Well, it'll go... it can go away from a day right now.
From a day, and then only have 1 reset instead of 2.
For a second, I thought I saw a Crucible of Worlds, but that's not legal in this format. O-Ring.
An O-Ring on the Messenger.
It looks like he's rocking a Shards O-Ring.
I think that's also the art for the core set O-Ring, so it could be one of those.
I thought I saw the little symbol, but I'm not sure. In for 3. Are you going down to 7?
And
I think is there a...
He has a go for the throat.
Go for the throat? Okay. It always feels so painful to go for the throat, something like a Fume Spitter.
Right, or a Gravecrawler. Though sometimes Fume Spitter is a horror, I believe.
It is a horror.
So it's possible that the Gravecrawler would die, though very improbable. Hendricks, I think, has a 5-card hand at the moment.
He takes it. Oh, and look at that, the red.
And here's where the red could show through. If Hendricks has a bump in the night, this will be very hard for Hetrick to win the game.
Thinking about end of the turn. Wow, end of the turn, hitting the Gravecrawler.
Well, he's hoping to draw some way to exile the Messenger. Which he has a lot of lands at this point, which is unfortunate for him.
Now he can cast a Sun Titan in his hand, but it doesn't do much work. There's 2 mana available from William Hendricks, which would...
No. So instead he's hoping to find one of his white exile cards, which he does not.
There's a Dead Weight. That mana leak just looks pretty ungood to me.
He probably keeps the Thought Scour as it's a cantrip, because I believe he still has a mana leak. And he does. So he's going to hope to take 3. Mana Leak another messenger. He's hoping that Hendricks will not draw a Bump in the Night or a messenger. Or he's just going for the purge right now, hoping it's his top card. And it is not. So he does not have a Mana Leak, so he is waiting for Hendricks to turn his creature sideways.
A Diregraph Captain, a Bump in the Night, a Mortar Pod, a Go for the Throat of William's Own, yeah, a Geth's Verdict,
almost any of these cards
a
are
Phyrexian Metamorph, a Liliana of the Veil.
So
all of these cards kill Michael Hetrick.
It might be better to count as which cards he's not, which cards don't at this point.
Down to 1. It's pretty dire here for Michael.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a messenger.
Oh, and he has another messenger.
And that's all.
So William Hendricks wins in 3 games, 2-1 over Michael Hetrick.
Going into this match, I know that one of the things that a lot of people say about Zombies versus Control is that Zombies is very, very effective versus Control because of 2 main ingredients. 1 is Gravecrawler, and 2 is the Geralf's Messenger, both of which are very, very potent weapons simply because of their resilience.
And both of which we saw Hendricks use here. And